Very glad to welcome Rich Reynolds back into the studio. How you doing, Rich?
Hey, I guess I'm the international, right?
You absolutely are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You told me last time that you enjoyed it.
I did.
You, being an American abroad.
I do like being it. It's really unique. It's really unique being an English speaker in a Spanish-speaking country. It's
Absolutely,
kinda,
but you speak good Spanish, though, don't you?
I do. I'm at like a B1, B2 level, something like that. But I'm never going to be fluent. I mean, that's a lot to ask for.
What's the hardest thing you found coming from America to live in Spain?
I think the hardest thing is the fact that a lot of the stores open when they want to open, and they would rather be closed. If it were up to me, I would want to make some money. And for instance, when COVID happened, I thought, wow, this is going to be great because when we come back, the store down the street that is closed from 2 to 5, all of a sudden they're going to be open a little bit more because they need to make back all this money. No, I don't think so. I don't. Making money, not on my radar.
It's important to have a good lifestyle as well, Rich.
You got to have a good lifestyle.
It is.
So, yeah, I think that's it. Everybody does everything on their own time, and the fact that in the States, you have stores that are open 14, 16 hours a day, and here you're lucky if they'll give you a good 8.
A lot of the supermarkets in Britain are 24-hour these days.
Yeah, that's true.
That's no life.
You got some good Well, yeah, you're right about that. You're right.
Got to take some time and kick back a bit.
Yeah.
So listen to me, just come back off holiday.
I know. And welcome back, by the way.
Thank you. So, plenty been going on since we spoke a couple of weeks ago stateside. The main story over the last couple of days about the 3 U.S. troops who have been killed in that drone attack on the American base in Jordan. A very difficult situation for America. A very difficult situation for Joe Biden, who as we talked about what we were talking about today, was what would the response be? And actually, he's just spoken, as if on cue, as we've come on air, saying that we don't need a wider war in the Middle East. And we know that it was an Iran-backed militia group that claimed responsibility for the attack. And dozens were injured, along with the 3 people that were killed, of course. He's not detailed what the action would be. Obviously, you don't do that in a situation like this, because what would be the point in telling people exactly what you're going to do? He's promised a very consequential response. And obviously, the US are not looking to have that conflict in the Middle East spiral. Very, very tough situation all round. And what are they going to do? I mean, what are the responses? Where do you go? Do you bomb Iran? Is that where you go? That's one of the options, obviously, that is there. Or do you just strike the Iranian support, the bases, the Allied bases and commanders? Or of course, there's the other one, which Mr. Trump would love, would be for Joe to do nothing.
Yeah, because that way he looks strong, because he is saying that one of his quotes where there's 100% chance that there will be a major terrorist attack in the U.S. So many attacks, maybe it's because of what's happened in the past 3 years. So he's blaming Joe for everything, which is, of course, unfair. But everything comes down to him wanting to look strong. I'm a strong person. He said, quote, we would have peace right now throughout the world if I were president. Instead, we're on the brink of World War III.
Well, we know the sort of response that he would do or give to Ukraine. He would effectively shake hands with Vladimir Putin and say he can keep the parts of Ukraine that he's already taken. That would be his idea. He said he would be able to sort it out in 24 hours, but that would be how he would sort it out. I mean, that's not really a solution, is it? It would be encouraging Russia and kicking the can down the road, surely.
I don't know what they're going to do, but if I were to guess, I would say I think there are going to be some specific target bombings on bases. I don't think they're going into. They certainly would be. It would be crazy to go into any of the major cities and start dropping bombs, killing women and children. That makes no sense. But crazier things have happened. But I think that they're going to be looking at all the bases in the area. And you're right. I think they're looking at Iran as one of the targets that I think they're going to be facing down, as well as in Syria and Jordan and a lot of those other countries over there. But certainly he has to do something. I mean, this is the one of 160 attacks that have happened over the past few weeks. Clearly, as a country, we're being provoked. clearly they want us to do something, and unfortunately they're going to do it. The question is,
last time you were here, we were talking about the response to the bombing of shipping, and that was happening as we were speaking. That again, we saw US and UK ships bombing Houthi rebel-held areas in Yemen. And does it make a big difference? Has it made a big difference, do you think? It doesn't seem to have deterred them at all, and it doesn't seem to have stopped Iran from agitating the whole situation.
No, because I think it's something they want to do. They want to poke the bear as much as they can and take it as far as they can take it. And if you let them do it, I'm not advocating for a full-blown war, but if you keep doing that and you don't respond, they're going to keep doing it, and that's kind of how they're built. And so I think that that's something that needs to be taken into account. I think Joe needs to do something. I think he's smart and not telling anybody what he's going to do. Only a fool would be out there and say, if I were you.
Well, I know who would be telling people what he was going to do.
Yeah, I know. But it's
not what you do in this situation, obviously.
But I'm sure as we speak, he's talking to congressional leaders and trying to do things. The only big problem that the country has right now, and the way the Senate is built, is that the Republican Party, and I don't want to pick on Republicans per se, but the way they build bills is that they will include.
Let's use the big one, the case in point. The situation at the Mexican border, tied up with aid for Ukraine and aid for Israel.
Right, and they're folding that all in together.
Yeah.
If you want money for the border, you'll vote for this, and the Democratic Party is saying no, or the Democrats in power are saying no. I want to separate this out. You can do that. I mean, we're talking about a lot of money here, but I think folding this in is different. I think a lot of the Republican leaders are looking to retaliate full bore, who want to go in with guns blazing.
I saw that, yeah.
And of course they'll bring in the Brits. And they'll bring in the Canadians, and they'll bring in the Swedes, and they'll bring in,
Netherlands have also been supporting some of that action against the Houthis.
Of course, and the Australians and New Zealand and all of the allies, and then it becomes a big thing. So I'm glad I'm not in that position.
So do you believe that Iran are really after the wider conflicts in the Middle East? What purpose would that serve? I suppose to mess up U.S. interests everywhere.
Well, they do have nuclear weapons.
They do.
And they've had them for a number of years. So I just think they're, it's like a dog chasing a car. When you catch the car, what do you do with it? I think that's the case. I mean, you could say they're picking a fight, and I don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what's going to happen if there is a fight. They don't. Apparently, they know that we're still smarting from Vietnam. There's a big thing in the country about do we want another Vietnam? It comes up all the time. And that's why it was really hard to jump into the Gulf War in 91, tough to jump into the Gulf War in 2001. I mean, that was a different circumstance. But
it was.
But at that point, whenever there's a conflict, we look around and go, do we want another Vietnam? And the answer is no, we don't. But, do you want to be weak? I don't think Joe Biden is being weak. I think he's being strategic.
Traditionally, America is the world's policeman. So
I know,
and I don't know that's not something that the guy who wants to be president again would want to be. And he certainly said that last time. We'll talk a bit more about him after the break. What about the situation in the Middle East? Because it's just got worse since we spoke 2 weeks ago.
It has gotten worse, and I think it's going to continue to get worse. I think as long as these attacks continue. I wonder about the shipping containers going through the Suez Canal and saying, "Oh, we got boarded by these people who had guns." And I go, "You're in the biggest boat. You're in these gigantic boats. You don't have guns. You have nothing. You don't have. I'd drop rocks on their heads. I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
You'd think they would have a bit more security.
You would
certainly. The places where I went to at times, there was on the flights there was even that sort of pretty heavy security. People with loaded weapons.
Yeah.
So why I guess they probably do on the ships, but maybe they're overwhelmed. I don't know. They don't seem to be able to stop it anyway. But more specifically, there doesn't seem to be any agreement close between the U.S. and Israel either on how to end what's happening in Gaza.
No, it's a real conundrum. I don't know how that thing is going to end, but the shooting has got to stop. There's no question. I don't care what party you belong to. I don't care what your belief is. You can't keep killing each other. And I believe that this is my own personal opinion, that the Israelis had every reason to respond the way they did. But, now we're at a point where maybe there needs to be a ceasefire. I mean, these people have nothing. These people have no food. They have no water. They have no ammunition. We're down to women and children. And how far do you want to take this? And I know we all want to see the hostages come back. Everybody who is not in Hamas wants to see that happen. But I wonder how long you take that and when do you do that? Netanyahu seems to be, right or wrong, dug in. He's not going to change his tune. Unless
it's in his interest as well.
Unless
his own interest,
unless the country changes it for him.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and I do not know, and I'd be interested to know what a lot of Israeli people think. Whether or not he's in the right or he's in the wrong.
Well, there is some will. We've seen that over the past week or so. Certainly in Israel there is a will for this to find a way to solution, and certainly for the killing to stop. Nearly 27,000 Palestinians and 66,000, 27,000 killed and 66,000 wounded. In that action since the 7th of October. I mean, those are horrific and huge numbers, and you have to think that, Israel's saying it killed around 9,000 enemy combatants. Well, hang on. Women and children are those that are being killed more than anybody else. And they're not really Hamas, are they? Let's face it.
No, and do you want to continue this? Do you want this to be your legacy, is killing women and children? Forever, whatever your platform is. I mean, the answer to me is no, you do not want to be doing this. But how to get out of it? It's always tough. I was talking about Vietnam. It was Nixon's problem. He didn't know how to get out of Vietnam. It was a thing called, what did he call it? Honor, victory with honor. Mm-hmm. How do I back out of this? I've caught the car. How do I get out of this thing and save face?
Well,
that's a big problem.
We're talking about famine now in the area, and it's, I don't know, because if we knew the solutions, we'd be better people than those that are trying to find them at the moment. So the latest that we have from Joe Biden, he said he has decided how to respond on the drone strike that killed 3 U.S. troops and injured dozens in Jordan. He has said to reporters leaving the White House today that he has decided, but hasn't elaborated on exactly what decision he has come to or how that response will be. But I would imagine that he said that they've made a decision. We'll see what that'll be in the next 24 hours or so. Rich Reynolds is with us talking U.S. politics this afternoon, which obviously, as we've been just hearing, spreads right across the planet. But we'll look a little bit more closer to home and the campaign trail. There's another primary on the way, and we'll talk about what's been happening in recent days as well.
You're listening to Bay Radio.
BayRadio International with The Miracles, Love Machine. Just been talking about the merits of American music, which, you see, I've left some in there, I've been doing this on purpose.
I appreciate it.
ZZ Top there is the superstar as well.
I got to tell you, that's right in my wheelhouse, those songs. I love them. That's when I was first on the air.
Rich Reynolds is with us here talking U.S. And we were not going to get very far without mentioning Mr. Trump. In fact, we were going to save him till this segment, and he came in already anyway, because he's just about all over everything at the moment, isn't he? So where are we with Mr. Trump? Most recently back in court again, and he has to pay quite a lot of cash to the former Elle writer E. Jean Carroll, $83.3 million, that defamation ruling. He's going to appeal.
That's a nice payday.
He's going to appeal, isn't he, obviously?
He's going to appeal, and he's going to lose. I mean, there was they'll appeal to a higher court, and we'll see how it goes. He's always talking about the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court doesn't see cases like this. The Supreme Court doesn't want anything to do with this.
So this was the federal court in New York.
It's a federal court, right?
From,
that's the notch below the Supreme Court. That's as high as you can get. But he's got 3 more trials coming up.
Indeed.
He's got to pay attention to that. But if you look at the fact that they've looked at his money, at how much money he has actually on hand. He has I think the estimate is like $250 million.
He does not have the money that he tells everybody he has.
No, he does not have $2 or $3 billion.
No, he doesn't.
But he has. If you can take this out of your head, $250 million. This is 1/3 of all his money is going to go to this woman.
Yeah.
And I feel badly for her, but boy, this is going to really smart. And he doesn't help by storming out of the court.
No,
I guess he
was...
thinks this is. I'm going to just show everybody by being a baby, what this is, because that's what it is. It's like being a big baby. I mean, I wouldn't like to lose a court case, but that's kind
It
of
doesn't seem to
the
trouble
way
because
it
he
is.
actually makes it worse.
He does, but then he raises money off that. Then he was on social media that night saying, "You can help me out by donating to my campaign." And well, that folks, when you donate to his campaign, it's going to his legal fund. If that's where you want to send your $5, your $10, your $20, go ahead and do it. But that's where it's going. And by the way, if he's a billionaire, why does he need your money? Why does he need your $5, $10?
There have been quite a few.
I just raised the question.
Indeed. I don't know why people would want to give him money.
It's rhetorical.
There have been a number of articles this week about the possibility of not him just becoming the nominee to become the next president or to return to the presidency, but to actually beat Joe Biden in a showdown to become the next president of the United States. Europe's worried. Well, certainly Europe's press are concerned. There's been a lot of column inches about it this week.
Really? Well, they should be, because a lot of Americans are worried about it, but
not enough.
That we know. But I have a lot of friends who are Trump supporters, and I got to tell you, and family members, this thing is going to come down to the end.
We talked about this before, didn't you? Between you and your brother, poles apart on politics, which is unusual for the state, let alone outside.
We never talk politics, but I know he's a Trump supporter, and he's. And I love him to death, but we are on opposite ends of this thing, and it doesn't get between us. But I can tell you that this thing is going to go down to the wire. It's going to be that night. It's going to be that close, and it's whoever campaigns the best. The real problem is this. I think you and I talked about it 2 weeks ago. Is that the whole idea of age is like a snowball running down a hill, because once you start...
It's taboo and nobody says anything about it at the moment, but Trump will say anything.
That's right, but once you start talking about it, it just picks up speed. It picks up momentum going down the hill. It's like when somebody says, whatever you do, don't look at Aunt Gladys's wart. She's got a wart on her nose. Whatever you do, don't do that. And then you can't see anything but the wart on Aunt Gladys's nose. It's like this. You can't, whenever you talk about Joe being too old... every time he trips, every time he looks a little sluggish, he's having a bad day, you look at it and go,
They worry about his speech, but of course, as you highlighted before, he actually did, as a child, had a speech problem.
He did. He's been very public about he had a stuttering problem as a child. But I don't really see him do as a real problem. I just think he's done a great job as president, and I support him. But the Trump thing, there are a lot of people that love him, and they love him because he seems strong.
And is that it? Because
he's a strong man who is going to go to prison and is guilty of felonies, but people don't care. And I don't know.
You've never had a president that's been a criminal. Well,
we have.
There's been a convicted criminal.
We have back in the 1800s. And so but none of that have gone to jail. But a lot of them have been convicted, and we had like Warren G. Harding.
We're going a long way back. Yeah, I mean,
back when I was a boy.
In living memory, Nixon possibly, but
Nixon absolutely. But the point is that he's seen as a strong man, he's a strong leader, but when you come down to it, he doesn't have. I know I'm tipping my hat on which way I lean, but I think that if you have convictions against you, if all these people are suing you, and you're seen as a con man who just happens to be very strong. Anybody can be strong by making pronouncements, but I'm kind of waiting to see what your policy is. What were your policies those 4 years?
He's not specific, is he?
What did you do? What did you accomplish? Could you write those down? Because I'm not seeing them.
Well, it was a revolution on Capitol Hill.
Oh, there was that, but they don't hold that against him. That was a bunch of people out for a vacation. Somebody really said that.
Somebody said that was they were out for a vacation.
They're just out on vacation, and it got a little out of hand.
Hang on, wasn't there a court case against him for inciting the trouble?
So, Anyhow,
So what's he been saying about Nikki Haley then? Because, she could, the idea is that she might become the nominee instead of him, but it doesn't look very likely.
It doesn't look very, very likely, but she's still out there swinging for him. And before the Iowa caucuses, she was very careful. She didn't say anything against him. Well, maybe he's losing his mind. Maybe he's not. She would say things like that. But now she's coming out swinging a little bit because she's not going to be his vice president. She's not going to be in his cabinet. She's burned that bridge.
What was it you were telling me before we came on air about what he was saying about anybody who even gave one dime to her campaign?
If you give a dime to her campaign or support her in any way, you're out of the MAGA universe.
The MAGA universe.
Universe was his...
Make America Great Again is what
Correct.
It stands for. So his acolytes, basically.
Yeah. Isn't that what a baby says? If you don't give me candy, I don't want to be. I don't want to be your son anymore.
In Europe, we hear what he says and the way that he says it, and exactly that. My mum would say exactly what you say, but a lot of Americans don't seem to see that.
No, well, a lot of them don't. I mean, you believe what you want to believe. We have all had candidates that we have supported in our lives, whether in the UK or in France or in Spain, it doesnn't matter. But
I once supported somebody who sent me to an illegal war. So there you go. What can I say?
What
do I know?
Oh, I remember that. But there are people there are candidates that I have supported where they've turned out that they were just not good people, and then
after the fact,
yeah. And there are people that while they were running for office, I looked at them and I go, oh, we don't want to support this guy anymore. I mean, when I was living in Chicago, my congressman was a convicted felon. He went to jail for mail fraud. So he goes to jail, and he's up for election, right? And my wife said, I said, who did you vote for? And she said, I voted for him. I said, well, I couldn't do that. I couldn't vote. Did you vote for the Republican? I said, well, no, I just didn't vote in the category. I wasn't going to vote for a convicted felon, but there are those choices that we face. But there are people that you as an adult that you support. And you go, well, I like the cut of that guy's jib. I like him. He's energetic. He's forceful. He's blah, 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 blah. And then you find out he's a crook. It's okay. It's okay to step back and go, yeah, maybe I'm not going to support this person because...
but that's not what's happening with Trump. People are still supporting him.
It's not. It's building up...
It's almost then like badges of honor, and he wears them as such.
He does. He does. And every time there's another, and Americans know this, every time there's another lawsuit, he gets more powerful. And nobody can figure it out. Nobody can figure it out. But the point is that I don't even know what the point is. I'm running out of steam here.
So there's nobody really is going to be able to challenge him. So he will become the nominee.
He will be the nominee, but it's going to take a few weeks. And the next campaign, the next primary
is Nevada, I think you said.
Nevada, and it's a caucus. I don't know if your audience knows what the caucus is.
We were trying to get to this last time you were here.
Okay.
So if
the way a normal primary works is you have two parties. A third party candidate would not have any sort of. They could be on a write-in, but they can get on a ballot, but they would not have a whole campaign. What happens is in a state like New Hampshire, you would go to a polling place. And at the polling place, like in any other country, you would vote for that person, and whoever wins, wins. At a caucus, you would go to a high school. Most of them are high schools. And there would be maybe 100 or 200 high schools. And you would collect, it would be you and your neighbors. You would all get together and talk about that. And then you would take a vote in that room, looking at each other. It's not a secret ballot. It was
really?
Oh, yeah. It's all you sit there and you go, what does Kal think? What does Rich think? And you put your hand up and you go, one vote for Kal, one for Rich, and you put that in. That's how the caucus works.
And they then what? Win that state for that person?
You win that district. That's right. When you collect all the days,
all the districts together.
It would be like everybody in your town, your hometown, getting together and voting for a candidate.
But we kind of know that's how America works, doesn't it? Because each town or state, effectively, is one or the other.
It's a country. It's a small. Each state is like a small.
But, so they're Democrat or the Republican. So and they always have been and always will be. There's not that doesn't really change very often. They're what they call swing states, aren't they? So they're the ones that could go either way.
That depending on the election, they go either way. There are certain states like where I came from, Oregon. Oregon is a very, very blue state, becoming more red, but it's a blue state. Then there are what they call purple states, which are swing states, meaning Michigan, Ohio. A lot of states in the Midwest, they could go either way. Arizona, which used to be a very Republican state, is becoming a swing state. But states like New York, Massachusetts, the whole New England, those are all very, very Democratic states. But the Deep South, Midwest, becoming more and more purple. So we don't know where. I mean, there's a famous story about Hillary Clinton in 2016. That she was neck and neck with Trump in the polls in Michigan. And she was told by her campaign and by her husband, pretty smart campaigner, saying, go to Michigan. Whatever you do, you got to go to Michigan. She goes, no, I'll pass it. I'm ahead. If she had won Michigan, she would be president. She would have been president. But she passed up on it. She ran, in my estimation, a really bad campaign. But she didn't win a lot of states that she should have won, that she didn't win. But it didn't quite go that way.
All right, we'll stay on top of things as we head towards the U.S. elections with our U.S. correspondent, Rich Reynolds. And we'll talk a little bit of sport, I think, before we wrap things up today, because we know who is going to be contesting the next Super Bowl.
You're listening to Bay Radio.
Celebrating all things American today with our US correspondent, Rich Reynolds, who is back with us talking about all things stateside. And the big news this week in the sporting world of the United States is that Super Bowl 58 is decided. San Francisco 49ers, set to play against the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a big rematch Super Bowl, and it could go either way.
They could. They played against each other a couple of years ago, and Kansas City won. They're both what I would call legacy franchises. They're both dominant teams. Neither of them are surprises. If you looked at them, you don't go, well, why are they in the game? They're both really, really good football teams. The one thing I will tell you that's interesting about this game is that the quarterback, as those of you who follow football, American football, even in the slightest way, the quarterback is the centerpiece of the team. And if you don't have a good quarterback, you're not going to win any games. Because a guy named Brock Purdy was the 224th player chosen that year out of 224. He is what they call Mr. Irrelevant. So it's one of these things where you draft all these players, and they have 7 rounds of drafts. So they have 32 teams choosing all these players. He was the last guy chosen, and now he's a quarterback in the Super Bowl.
Awesome.
Pretty amazing. Because when they picked him, it was like he was like the 4th string quarterback. Why do we even have this guy? And, he was basically warming the bench, getting the Gatorade. That's all.
Is it because he's been so good, or have there so many injuries?
It's a combination of both. I mean, you're not going to send unless there are injuries. He's not in practice, and they go, "Wow, he's really good. I'm glad we're paying him X number of dollars."
We're glad that the San Francisco 49ers are actually in the Super Bowl because they own Leeds United, which of course is my team. And any money they make, if they make big money, then obviously a bit of it's got to come our way. In fact, actually, Steve's already messaged me saying, "Well, should we talking about that marching on together," which is one of the Leeds mantras, San Francisco 49ers. So so we're looking forward to that. But of course, there's a big love story involved there as well.
Boy.
If you pardon the pun.
Why don't you tell me about it?
If you pardon the pun.
I haven't
It's not
heard.
just been about the Taylor AI pictures on the internet this week. It's been about this Super Bowl love story, hasn't it?
Well, she and Travis Kelce, they seem to be the real thing, at least now. I don't know where things are going, but the big discussion on American TV is she going to fly from Tokyo to Las Vegas to see the game? Is she going to make it in time? Because she's playing in Tokyo the night before, and they're going, let's see, the show starts at 7, 3-hour show. Then she's got to get on the plane, blah blah blah, and it's I don't know how long it takes.
Of course, she was on the field, wasn't she, after that win against Baltimore Ravens? And already we're hearing the political push on that as well, where right-wing pundits and social media are saying that it was staged, part of a PSYOP strategy designed to manipulate people into voting Democrat.
Yeah, that is a real stretch. These football players don't really care about politics. I would never. I've never been a professional athlete, but I mean, I can't see that being true at all. We know what her politics are. She's a chronic anti-Trumper, but and I don't know what his politics are, but I can tell you he is a great capital G football player.
Well, he got a touchdown in that game we were talking about.
He's sensational. He's got a great pair of hands. He's got a great quarterback in Mahomes. San Francisco also has a great team. It's going to be a sensational game. Now, that being said, that is usually not the best game of the year.
No.
Usher is the halftime show. That's what a lot of people go for. A lot of people go
the
for
sales that these artists have after they've appeared in one of these shows is
I don't know what the numbers are.
The numbers just escalate. They're huge. If you get that show as an artist, it's just one of the best things that can happen to your career because you sell so much after. But you were running through before we were on air about actually the costs of ad space within these games as well.
I don't think, and the number goes up by about $1 million a year. And I remember when it cracked $1 million, and it was about, I think 6 or 7 years ago, a 30-second commercial in the Super Bowl was $1 million. It is now $6.5 million.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. And a lot of the analysts...
Our bosses would love some of that.
Oh, my God. Isn't that what they charge, these spots? No, it's not that. Last year's game was seen by 115 million people. That's just in the U.S., and I know it's been seen by more around the world. One thing I can tell you, though, that a lot of the game is on at, what time did I write down? 12:30 in the morning. It begins here in Spain. Coverage there of the game starts at 6:30, but the pregame starts at around 8 o'clock in the morning. So for 10 hours, there's Super Bowl coverage. 10 hours.
It's the foreplay, as my mum calls it.
It's every angle. It's like here's a guy who's played one down in the whole season. Well, let's talk to his mom. We say it's covering the game from every possible angle. And I'm a football fan, but I'm watching these games going, why don't you call me when the game starts? I am not going to watch any more profiles. And the games on air rotate from network to network. And this year, CBS has the game. NBC had it last year. So next year, it's either Fox or ABC.
So they don't have to pay big money to have the game. You just get it as a matter of course.
You get it as a matter of course, but it's tied into your licensing agreement when you do a deal like every 5 years, every 10 years, I think. Used to be 5, now that's probably 10 years. So, but you're paying big money to have that. It's like the Olympics. You're paying incredible amount of money to do it. But every media buyer that I've talked to and everything I've read says it's worth it. At $6.5 million, it's worth it.
Got to be. Coming up on the 11th of February, Super Bowl 58, and we'll be following what happens there. Rich, it's been great to see you back in the studio with us again. And thank you very much for dropping by.
Thanks for having me.
You can always catch up on these chats on Bay Radio, not just with Rich, but with everybody that comes in on air. We're on our Facebook page, Bay Radio in Spain. Indeed, on our website, bayradio.fm as well. In fact, our last chat is up there, and you look pretty great on that.
You're listening to Bay Radio.